The wind rolled low across the plains like a whisper too tired to howl. Dust clung to the dry grass, painting every fence post the same weary shade of gray. Along the edge of a fading ranch, where the barn would sag like old shoulders, a girl crouched beneath an apple tree. The apples were half rotten, fallen, and speckled with flies. She picked them carefully, choosing the ones less bruised. Her fingers moved quick, like a stray dog stealing from a butcher's stall. She bit into one, flinched at the taste, but kept chewing. Hunger had long since robbed her of pickiness. From the shadow of the barn, a man watched. He was tall but bent, as though life had pressed a knee into his back and left him half-folded. His coat hung loose, faded and patched at the shoulders. A limp marked his walk, each step more a drag than a stride. His name was Caleb Dunn, though no one had said it aloud in years, and he didn't offer it. The girl looked up when she heard him shift. For a moment neither moved. The wind scraped between them like a blade. He spoke first. "They ain't much good, them apples." She didn't answer, just stood up straight. She was rail-thin, wrapped in a threadbare shawl, and boots 2 sizes too big. Her cheeks were hollow, and a long scratch curled down the side of her jaw. He guessed she'd been walking for days. "They fall early," he said, quieter now. "Worms get 'em." Still nothing. Her eyes flicked left, to the open field, the fence, the far-off road. She was thinking about running. He took off his coat. "Come in," he said, holding it out like a peace offering, "before the wind steals your bones." She didn't move at first, but something in his voice, maybe the lack of threat in it, made her step forward. She took the coat, without touching his hand, and held it like it might vanish. He turned without another word and led her to the house. Inside was simple, with stove, a cot in the corner, shelves lined with empty jars and dust. The table had one chair. He gestured to it. She sat. Caleb ladled stew from a pot on the stove. It wasn't much, just beans, onion, and a hint of dried beef. But her eyes locked on the bowl like it was gold. She ate fast, but not wild. She was used to rationing. He poured water from a jug and placed it beside her. "You got a name?" he asked. She paused, wiped her mouth with the back of her sleeve. "Josie," she said. "That's all." "All's enough." She said nothing after that. When she finished, she stood, ready to leave. Caleb didn't stop her. He just nodded toward the back room. "You can stay if you want. Floor's cold, but it's dry." Her shoulders twitched, uncertain. Finally, she walked slow to the room and closed the door. The silence afterward felt heavier than before. Caleb sat by the stove, watching the fire snap and hiss. He reached for the old revolver that hung above the mantel. His hand hovered near it, then dropped. He hadn't touched the thing in 10 years. The next morning, she was still there, awake before him, sweeping the porch with a bundle of straw she'd found behind the barn. She didn't speak, just worked. Caleb watched through the window, then boiled water for coffee. Days passed like that, quiet, steady. She began tending the apples, picking out the worst, setting the rest in crates. She mended a hole in the chicken wire, fed the dog he hadn't named. She spoke rarely, but moved like someone used to earning her place. Caleb didn't ask questions. He figured if the girl wanted to talk, she would. But in small ways, she told her story. He noticed the way she flinched when a hawk cried overhead, how she kept her back to the wall when indoors, the way she startled the horseshoes on dirt. Once, he found her sleeping in the barn loft, not the bed he'd offered. She was more comfortable near exits, always ready to run. One evening, as the sun dipped behind a canyon ridge, she brought in wood for the stove. He sat whittling by the door. "Why don't you ask me where I came from?" she said, not looking at him. He took his time answering. "Figure you'll tell me if you want." She was quiet again. Then, "I walked a long way. Through towns where folks don't ask, but they watch. Past ranchers who look at girls like they're cattle. I ran out of food 2 days before I found this place." He nodded. "You run from someone?" She hesitated. "Yes." That was the end of it. Caleb didn't press. But that night, he took the revolver down from the mantel, oiled it, and placed it in the drawer near his bed. In the weeks that followed, the girl began to speak more. Not about the past, but about the world as she saw it, mean, cracked, and always shifting beneath your feet. She had a sharp mind, full of truths nobody wanted to hear. Caleb listened, and the quiet between them grew warm instead of heavy. Then came the man on horseback. He rode past the fence line one afternoon, slow and easy, as if he owned the road. He tipped his hat toward the barn, but didn't stop. Josie saw him through the window. She went pale. "Who was that?" Caleb asked. She shook her head. "Nobody. But he saw her pack her things that night." "You're safe here," he said. "No one's safe from Emery Pike," she replied. Caleb didn't ask who that was. But after she went to bed, he opened the drawer again, checked the bullets, and sat up through the night. The next morning, Josie was still there, but she'd buried something behind the barn. He saw the fresh dirt, the locket half covered with soil. She didn't know he saw. He didn't ask. Instead, he made breakfast. She ate in silence, eyes on the window. Caleb chewed slow, thoughtful. It was going to be a long week. The dust arrived first. A long veil of it stretched low across the horizon, curling and rising in thick brown whirls, like smoke from a smoldering fire. Caleb stood on the porch, a tin cup in his hand, watching it roll closer. His eyes squinted, not from the sun, but from the knowing. Dust didn't dance like that unless it rode in on horses. By the time the shapes took form, black specks hardening into silhouettes, Josie had already slipped around to the back of the house, crouched low among the barrels and feed sacks. Caleb didn't call to her. He didn't need to. She'd moved like someone who'd done this before. For riders came up the road, their coats flapping like old flags, their horses thick-necked and dirty from travel. They didn't ride fast. This was a statement, not a raid. Whoever led them wanted to be seen. At the front was a man with a red scarf wound twice around his neck and tucked into a brown duster. His beard was thin, but his eyes were hard and hollow, like they'd been carved from flint. He pulled his horse up near the fence, stared at Caleb like he might have been a landmark. "Nice piece of land," the man said. His voice was easy, too casual. "Didn't think folks still clung to spots like this. Out here's got no law." "Don't need any," Caleb replied, slow. The man grinned. His companions chuckled without smiling. One of them spat. "Name's Rig. We're just passing through. Looking for someone," Rig said, though his tone made it sound like a test. "Don't see many folks out here," Caleb answered. "Sure," Rig said, nodding. "Still, you mind if we take a look around?" "I do." Rig's smile didn't fade. It flattened, grew thinner. "We're not the type who like being told no, mister." "I'm not the type who likes visitors," Caleb said, setting his cup on the porch rail. The man closest to Rig, a thick-necked brute with a scar running down his temple, shifted in his saddle. His hand hovered close to his revolver. Caleb noted it but didn't move. The breeze had gone still, as though the land itself was holding its breath. Rig leaned forward on his saddle horn. "See, we're looking for a girl. Young, maybe 17. Wiry little thing. Took something that didn't belong to her. We figure she came this way." Caleb said nothing. "She's got a mark on her jaw," Rig added casually. "Fresh. Long might be healing wrong by now." The porch groaned as Caleb shifted his weight. He didn't blink. "Ain't seen her." Rig sighed. "That's too bad. Because if we find out you're lying, well, that'd make you the wrong kind of man to be left standing." Caleb's hand rested against the side of the doorway, not far from the coat rack where a shotgun leaned, half covered by his old winter cloak. Rig's eyes darted to it. "Something else you ought to know," Caleb said. "Folks around here don't like their fences crossed." Rig didn't answer. His eyes studied Caleb's face, looking for something. Fear, doubt, weakness. Whatever he hoped to see wasn't there. "Let's go," Rig finally said to the others. "We'll check the creek trail." Maybe she doubled back. They turned, one by one, but not without glancing at the barn, the house, the stacked crates of apples near the orchard. As they rode off, their horses kicked up more dust, the kind that lingers long after they're gone. Caleb watched until they disappeared past the ridge. Only then did Josie emerge from behind the barn. Her face was pale, her lips tight with dread. She didn't speak until she reached the porch. "That was him," she said. "Rig, She nodded. His real name's Emery Pike. Riggs what he tells the lawman when he rides into town. He took me from a stagecoach outside Abilene. Kept me with his gang for nearly 4 months. She swallowed. I waited until he passed out drunk, then I ran. Caleb didn't say anything for a long while. His gaze lingered on the distant dust trail. The porch boards creaked under his boots as he turned and stepped inside. Josie followed. In the kitchen, he set the kettle to boil, then pulled the drawer beside the stove. He took out the revolver, checked the chambers, loaded it without flare. Josie watched with her arms wrapped around herself. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I know," he said. "You could send me off. Point them another direction." "I could." She looked at him then. Really looked. Something shifted in her eyes. A kind of fear turning into something else. Respect, maybe. Or guilt. Caleb set the revolver on the table. "I was a scout at Glorietta Pass," he said. "Rode with men who didn't sleep unless they leaned on rifles. After that, I ran dispatch for Marshall in Dodge. Got tired of the killing. Moved out here, so I wouldn't have to look over my shoulder anymore." Josie said nothing, but her fingers trembled where they gripped the edge of the chair. "I don't pick fights," he continued, "but I don't run from 'em neither. And I don't hand over good folks to dogs." A silence filled the cabin again, but it wasn't empty. It held something heavier, something forged in fire. Josie reached into her pack and drew out a folded cloth. Inside was a revolver, smaller, battered, but clean. She looked at it like it was both shield and curse. "I took it when I left," she said. "Didn't know if I'd ever use it again." He nodded. Outside, the wind returned, stirring leaves in the orchard and brushing dirt across the porch like a broom of ghosts. The sun dipped lower, casting the house in the kind of golden hush that came before storms or blood. "They'll be back," Caleb said, picking up his revolver. Josie looked him in the eye. "Then let's be ready." They didn't sleep that night. By lantern light, Caleb showed Josie how to clean her pistol properly. Her hands were steady now, the trembling gone, replaced by a quiet resolve that clung to her like dust on an old tray coat. She listened without interrupting, asked only the right questions. Caleb noticed how fast she learned, not just emotions, but the logic. She wasn't new to violence, just new to having a choice in it. Before dawn, they loaded a mule with canteens, a sack of dry cornmeal, 2 rifles, and a battered spyglass Caleb hadn't touched since the war. He scrawled a note, pinned it to the door with a rusted nail, "Back by dark or don't wait." The kind of note that spoke less like a promise and more like a possibility. They headed west, where the land dropped into crags and winding gullies, the forgotten edge of Carson Canyon. It was a place Caleb hadn't walked in 5 years, not since he'd left a badge buried in a dry creek near there, along with a piece of himself. By the time the sun crested the ridge, they'd found a narrow ledge above a choke point in the canyon. Below it, the trail curved into a tight funnel flanked by boulders and dry brush. A man could take 10 riders there with half a rifle and a strong breeze. Josie knelt beside him, peering through the spyglass. "How sure are you they'll come this way?" "I'm not," he said. "But Pike's the kind who circles back when he's told no. This trail's hidden enough to make a man feel clever for using it. And if they don't? Then we wasted a morning and saved a town the trouble of burying us." She didn't flinch at that, just sat back against the rock and pulled her coat tight. The wind up here had teeth. The hours crawled. Ravens circled overhead. Lizards darted between the rocks. Once, a distant echo rolled through the canyon. Dry thunder or maybe loose shale. Caleb didn't move. He watched the trail like it owed him something. Then he saw it. A flicker of movement, too rhythmic for wind, too purposeful for an animal. He passed Josie the glass. She adjusted the lens, sucked in a breath. 3. No, 4. Same horses. He nodded. And Pike, front and center. Caleb pulled the old rifle from its case. It was a Sharps .50, blackened with age, but still solid in the action. He ran a claw through the barrel, more out of habit than necessity. Then he laid flat against the rock, the stock nestled against his shoulder. Josie mirrored him, her pistol drawn, but held low. What if they brought more? They didn't, he said. Men like Pike don't trust crowds. Makes it easier to be outvoted. The riders entered the choke point just as the sun lit the top of the eastern bluff. They rode single file, loose reins, talking among themselves. Casual, confident. Caleb let them get within 20 yards of the tightest bend. Then he fired. The first man fell without a sound, his hat flying backward, arms jerking as he slumped sideways. The second spun, hit high in the shoulder. His horse reared and crashed into the third, tangling them both in the dry brush. Pike didn't stop. He kicked his horse hard, veering for cover behind a limestone outcrop near the trail's fork. He moved fast. Too fast for a man with no plan. Josie fired twice. One round snapped near the second rider's boot. The other pinged off rock, sending sparks and a curse echoing up the canyon. Caleb ejected the spent shell, loaded again. He lined up for the third man, who was crawling behind his downed horse. Before he could pull the trigger, Pike's voice rang out. "Caleb Harlow, that you, old ghost?" Caleb didn't respond. He watched the canyon, saw the way Pike moved, always behind rock, always talking just loud enough to distract. "We heard tales," Pike continued, "that the old lawman went soft, took to farming and hiding from a world. Now I find out he's raising strays and shooting at my boys." "You're down to already," Caleb called back. "Turn around while you still got a spine to protect." Pike laughed. "That girl ain't worth dying for. Hell, she ain't even yours." Josie's jaw clenched. "She's worth more than you," Caleb said. There was silence then, the kind that thickened the air and made the canyon feel smaller. Then Pike shouted again. "You know, you left a good mess behind when you quit, Harlow. Bounty on your head in 2 states. Marshall said you were a liability. Turns out he was right." Josie looked at Caleb, confusion flashing in her eyes. "Wasn't a badge I could wear after what I did," Caleb said quietly. "So I laid it down." Below, Pike moved again, too fast, too direct. Caleb saw it just in time. Down. He yanked Josie to the side as Pike's bullet bit into the rock where she'd been. Dust flew. A second shot followed, grazing Caleb's sleeve. He rolled to a new position, aimed and fired. The shot struck, just below Pike's cover, kicking shards into his face. Pike yelped, stumbled, then scrambled out into the open, limping. Josie raised her pistol, breath held. She didn't hesitate. One shot, center mass. Pike staggered, eyes wide. He looked up at the ledge at her. Then he collapsed without ceremony, his red scarf fluttering in the wind like a torn banner. The canyon went quiet again. Caleb lowered his rifle. Josie sat very still. Her hands, once calm, now trembled. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, blinking hard. "I hit what I meant to." He looked at her a long moment. "You didn't flinch." "I couldn't." Caleb stood, dusted off his coat. "That's the trouble with surviving," he said. "It makes you someone new." She looked down at Pike's body far below. "I don't know who that is yet." "You will." They started back toward the mule. The sun was higher now, warm on their backs. Behind them, the canyon held its silence, like a secret buried deep.